I'm Chris Erdmann, and this is Made of More, the show where we go beyond business to uncover real stories that shape entrepreneurs, leaders, and change makers. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW, we explore the pivotal moments, the adversity faced, the risks taken, and the resilience found along the way. This isn't just about what people have built, it's about who they've become. If you're ready for inspiration, practical insights, and stories that remind you that you too are made of more, you're in the right place. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever and however you're listening. I'm Chris Erdmann on the show Made of More. Thank you for tuning in with us today. So today I have a special guest, Anthony Cross, who has spent 3 decades in software industry, and one day just decided to move on from that and get into floor coverings international. And I'm curious on today's show, I'm going to be asking him questions about how he's applied his background in software and his whole life, how it brought him to today. So welcome to the show, Anthony.
Thank you very much, Chris. Great to be here.
Yeah, great to see you here. So Anthony and I, we belong to a business group together, and I've gotten to know him. And I just got to say, everybody in our group that's used you or referred you out has just got raving things to say about you, like 5 stars all the way. So good job there, I know, because it's a tough group sometimes.
It is a tough group. I've had some interesting curveballs thrown my way from the beginning, but I've really enjoyed networking with our chapter. Some amazing business people there.
Some amazing business people, yeah. I think we're pretty fortunate to be in such a good group. So let's get right into it. So you've been this successful entrepreneur as of just getting to know you. So in this short span of getting to know you, and it's been a pleasure, I'm curious of your path of getting to today and what's going on in the future. But tell me about what are some early elements in your life that may have influenced you to become an entrepreneur or otherwise?
It's a great question, Chris, because as I reflect on my 40-plus year journey from graduating high school to kind of where I am today, I would say that there's almost nothing in my earlier career that would have predicted where I am today. And I say that because, I grew up, you probably tell from the accent, grew up in the UK.
Where at in the UK?
Just north of London, a place called Bedford. And, my dad spent 35 years working for British Petroleum, BP, the oil company. My mum was a teacher. Uncles, aunts were all doctors and lawyers and professions. And so really from a very early age, that was kind of the direction that I was heading in myself. I went on to college. I got a degree in philosophy, of all things.
Why philosophy?
One simple reason, I absolutely loved it. It was a subject that I started reading when I was about 17, 18, really got into it, and just decided that I want to spend the next 3 years at college doing nothing but reading books about philosophy.
Well, I think that's great. My brother's a big philosopher, and he's really studied quite a bit of it. But who in philosophy has really impacted you?
I got into 20th century philosophy pretty heavily. There's a philosopher called Wittgenstein, who actually was a professor at Cambridge, which is where I went to college. And he was one of the foremost thinkers on the importance of language in philosophy. And his writings on language in particular really influenced my own view of the importance of language. I mean, there's a good saying, words matter. And they really do matter, in terms of the exact words that you say, how you use your words. It has an incredible impact on the way that we actually think about things and perceive the world as well. So Wittgenstein was a big influence. Language, I think, is incredibly important, and it's one of the things that I've carried through my entire career. Yeah.
Well, it definitely does have a big impact on how people view you, and I'd say you're one of the more well-spoken people. I don't know if it's your accent or what it is, but
the accent helps for sure.
Yeah, you're always speaking with a smile for those that are watching.
Right.
Yeah. So tell me more about your philosophy journey and how it's impacted your career.
That's a really good question. So I think probably the biggest takeaway that I had from, again, having a degree in philosophy is the ability to think very critically about things, to really analyze situations. Again, to use words carefully and to think pretty deeply about things too in terms of multiple steps ahead. I always think about business very often as a chess game. Beginners always start like 1 or 2 moves ahead, and that's kind of all they're thinking. But really to get good at business, you've got to think 5 or 6 moves ahead. And you've got to think about not just your own moves, but all your competitor moves as well. And I think that was a good lesson for me, again, in business, certainly as I got more senior, to be able to think more strategically about markets, customers, and what's happening within a particular space.
Sounds very impactful. Tell me a little bit about your career in the software industry. You know, and you don't have to get it all out now, but you worked with some pretty big companies and you spent 3 decades there. Did you know you were going to stay in a line of work so long?
I did not, to be honest. And actually, going back to a philosophy degree, I didn't even think I was going to go into software to begin with.
Yeah, how'd that happen?
It was kind of random. I knew 2 things when I graduated. I knew that I wanted to work for a sort of fairly large professional company. I also knew that I wanted to make a lot of money. I mean, it was quite simple. I'm going to be quite blunt about it, but I believe in the capitalist system and I wanted to make money.
So you knew that you wanted to make money.
Yeah, so I knew pretty early on that I liked money. I liked spending money. I liked, eating good food, drinking good wine.
I could relate to that.
So when I graduated, I actually looked at consulting and banking as 2 possible careers. I wasn't that good at math, so I pursued the consulting route. I worked for a company called Accenture. And what they basically did is they took this person that had almost literally never touched a keyboard before and taught me to program.
Wow.
And so my first 3 years, again, this is going to age myself, but I actually became a pretty good COBOL programmer.
COBOL programmer. What is that?
So for those of you that actually remember mainframe computers, that was the language you used to talk to a mainframe computer back in the day.
You've seen a lot of variations of technology, haven't you?
I sure have. I've been around a while, Chris. So started off with mainframes, programming, and then spent 7 years with Accenture as well.
Accenture. I actually want to back a little bit more because when we were talking before we started the show here, you said that you actually knew that you wanted to be in business as an executive early on as a kid. Where did that come from?
I think it came from both my father, who spent 35 years, as I mentioned, with BP. He started off also as a programmer out of college, and this was back in the sort of early 60s. When he was doing punch cards.
Sure.
So before you even coded things, you had to punch up a punch card.
I remember those.
Feed that into a machine. So he started off there, and 35 years later, he was the chief information officer for all of BP, working for the the CEO. So he had a really good career there. And so I saw, again, later on in his career, when he became pretty senior, saw the sort of life he was leading, and that was pretty appealing to me.
A great model.
Great model, for sure. Yeah, exactly. And then I've also, my uncle became a judge. Another uncle became one of the leading spinal surgeons in the UK. So I've had some great role models in my family that kind of helped me provide a model for where I wanted to be myself.
Wow, how fortunate. How lucky you were for that.
I sure was. I was very fortunate, Chris.
Yeah, I love that. What about Mom?
Mum is a teacher. So she was fortunate or unfortunate enough to have 3 sons, depending on one's perspective.
Yeah.
I think now that we're all grown up, she now says that she was fortunate, but at the time I think we were all pretty hard work for her.
Yeah, I can relate. There's 4 of us brothers all together. My mom always wanted a girl.
Oh my goodness, so did mine.
Yeah.
So my mum was a teacher. She had 3 boys, and so I know we were an awful lot of work for her. She was a stay-at-home mum until my youngest was about 10. Then she went back to teaching. But she's always loved teaching, with her kids, with all her grandkids. She's always been very close to them, teach them to read, teach them numbers, teaching them, just sort of basic skills.
Yeah, she sounds like maybe she's a pretty patient woman.
Very patient. She needed to be with me especially, Chris.
Yeah. With the best of them.
Exactly.
Wow. So sounds like you had a really nurturing mom and a pretty nurturing childhood with some good, amazing role models. Wow.
Definitely. I was very fortunate.
That's no surprise getting to know you in this short time.
Thank you.
So fast forward again, where you're at Accenture. Tell me about this journey here.
Yeah, really good question. So I was there for 7 years total. I became a senior manager, and I was on track to partner. And I took a pretty hard look at kind of the partner life and also, where that would lead me eventually. And I came to think that I didn't want to be a partner at Accenture.
What does that look like for everybody that's listening? When you're saying partner, what does that mean?
So back in the 90s when I was there, Accenture was a partnership. So they're now a public company, but back then they were a partnership. And so what that meant was, as a partner, you basically were an owner of Accenture as a business.
And that wasn't appealing to you.
So the ownership piece was, but I think what wasn't so appealing is the fact that I would basically turn into a salesperson.
Okay.
And apologies to all salespeople out there. And I'm a salesperson now myself, so I realize how naive that might seem. But my true love was always building things.
Okay.
And so the more senior I became at Accenture, the more I was removed from the building of things.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I saw partners basically spending their entire life selling the next project to customers and being very involved in that sales marketing process and really not being involved at all in the delivery piece of it. And that's where I got a lot of satisfaction, was actually building things for customers versus, being the customer-facing salesperson.
Right. Building, creating. And was there a lot of imagination involved with your building and creating, or?
A tremendous amount. I think this is one of the things that people maybe don't realize about software development, is that it's equal parts science and art. And the art for me is a piece that I really enjoy because I guess one of the ways of putting it is that there's always more than one way to solve a problem. And so with programming, what I found is that it was always about A, solving the problem, but then B, optimizing for that problem. And so, again, you can write some code that gets the job done, but it's very bulky and clunky. And again, back in the day, writing on mainframes, every single line of code was important. You actually had an allotted time of machine time given to you. So you had like an hour windowed where you can compile your code. And, if it didn't run first time, that was an issue because you then had to kind of go back and recompile and then rerun it again. And that slowed things down. So there was a big emphasis not only on getting things right first time, but also really optimizing your code so it ran efficiently, especially when we're doing things at big scale.
Sure. It sounds like you're half scientist, half artist. And that's really refreshing to hear because when I talk to some of my engineer software friends, I don't get to hear that side of it. So listening to you, it's like, wow, you have to be creative.
You have to be creative. Absolutely.
Tell me, do you want to share any projects that you've worked on that maybe you can share here?
Projects in general, gosh, I mean, there was a bunch more recently. One of the fun ones that I did actually was I worked for a local company called Eagleview. They do aerial imaging. And so they have a fleet of planes that actually they fly all over King County as well. And they take very high resolution images of properties. And what they then do is they extract data from those images and they use that data for things like measurement.
Okay.
King County Assessor's Office actually uses Eagleview for all their property assessments. So they're able to, again, from these very high-resolution images, they can see if you've built a swimming pool in your backyard or a tennis court and you haven't got a permit for it.
Or chopping down trees.
Or chopping down trees,
Yeah.
Exactly, Chris.
Yeah.
So I worked for Eagleview for a couple of years, and I think one of the things that I did there that I was, as I look back, and this was probably about 8-10 years ago now, but drones were just coming out. And there was a big question of, what should we do about drones? And one of the things that I did there was actually to come up with their very first drone strategy.
Oh, really?
Which was kind of fun.
What would this look like?
So our target market really was insurance adjusters. And so insurance adjusters, and it's specifically for certain areas of the country that get hit by major hailstorms.
Mm-hmm.
Hail damage on roofs is one of the biggest perils that insurance companies have to pay out on.
Really?
We don't see it as much here because we don't get really serious hail. But Midwest, they get these golf ball-sized hailstorms falling down on the roofs, and it destroys an entire roof.
Sure.
So when a big hailstorm hits a city, it can destroy 20,000 roofs, one big storm. So insurance adjusters then come in, and typically with hail damage, you've got to be really close to the roof to see, is this actually caused by a hailstone, or is it caused by a homeowner going onto their roof and banging it with a hammer?
You could tell the difference?
You actually can if you zoom in, yes. It's the way that the slates get abraded. You can actually tell, was it a hammer blow or a hail blow?
So, very interesting.
Yeah. So historically, the way that adjusters would go out and do this work is they go and they get on a ladder, they climb up to the roof, they crawl around and take detailed pictures from close up, and then they'd write their report. So what I did, and what I was responsible for, was coming up with the very first drone strategy for Eagleview, whereby we incorporated drones into that adjuster's workflow. So the big thing for them was, rather than having to get up on a ladder and spend 2 hours climbing onto a roof, very dangerous when you're 2 stories up and it's a steep slope, they unboxed the drone, they pressed a button, drone flew up, circled the entire house, took all these very detailed images, from 10 feet up, but they have high-resolution cameras on even back then they had great cameras on them. And then those cameras uploaded to the cloud, and there you can do your analysis.
Sounds like, when I'm listening to you talk, I hear how your philosophy background probably played a big part. You're talking about looking several steps ahead and also working with a team of people.
Right. Exactly, yeah. Chris. Yes. None of these things can be done individually. They all require a pretty big team.
Yeah.
And again, for me, there was obviously the aspect around the software aspect because we're developing a product. There's also, though, the hardware aspect of the drone itself and how does it fly and how does it get automatically controlled and so on. But then beyond that even, there's the actual human aspect of the adjuster themselves going out and what sort of skills do they have? What knowledge do they have? What are they looking for? Understanding their entire workflow as part of their claims process.
Yeah.
So there's many components you have to be able to kind of think through and understand and build a solution around.
And one other thing that stands out too is like, as you're talking about that, is you seem to exude a lot of leadership skills, being able to see that far ahead and then also work within a team, wherever you stood within that team, you have to be a good leader.
It's a combination. I think that's very fair. And again, my own leadership skills have definitely developed over time. I'm an introvert, and so, I'm not naturally very outgoing. But I think the way that I think about myself now is that I'm an outgoing introvert, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to you. So you've been listening to the show Made of More. I'm your host, Chris Erdmann, and we've been interviewing Anthony Cross. Stay tuned in with us here after these messages.
It's 4 a.m., Monday, and you're literally sucking baby snot through a tube because she's congested. Man, that's love. And if you love her that much, love her enough to make sure she's buckled in the right car seat. To make sure your child's in the right seat for their age and size, visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Show them you love them. Keep them safe. Visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Hello, I'm Chris Erdmann. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW, I sit down with inspiring entrepreneurs, creative minds, and game changers to uncover the real stories behind their business. On my show, Made of More, we explore the challenges that they've overcome, the breakthroughs that they've celebrated, and the mindset that drives them forward. If you're ready to unlock your full entrepreneurial potential, Made of More is the show for you, because here we know you are made of more. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW.
Alternative Talk 1150, the talk of the sound.
Welcome back to the show Made of More. I'm your host, Chris Erdmann, and we're tuning back in here with Anthony Cross of Floor Coverings International. We were just talking about Anthony's experience through the tech industry, and he's sharing some stories with us. So welcome back, Anthony.
Thanks, Chris. Great to still be here.
Yeah. So what happened next in your career that you'd like to share? I know, what was the last company you were with?
Yes, so the last major corporation I worked for was a company called Yelp that you may well be familiar with. It's a very widely used app. It has, I think, 70 million active monthly users at last count. And so obviously great on the consumer side. Yelp's also got a very big presence with businesses. And it's built up an incredible network, marketplace, if you will, that connects local businesses with consumers.
And what was your role there?
So at Yelp, I was a vice president of product, and Yelp has a restaurant business. So if you ever made a reservation through Yelp or joined a waitlist for a restaurant on Yelp, that is Yelp's restaurant business. It's actually a SaaS, software as a service solution, that they sell into restaurants, and it really helps them to manage their front of house operations.
All right. Well, there you go. I've used Yelp plenty of times. Definitely love it. So thank you for being a part of that.
Sure. Absolutely. It's my pleasure. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. You made dining a better experience, kind of getting there and integrating everybody's minds to agree on a place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then also you spent a bit of time at Microsoft.
Yeah. Actually, Microsoft's what brought me to Seattle, where I've lived now for 20 years. Came here 2005. Moved to Seattle, and I joined the Office team with Office for a couple of years. Helped to launch Office 2007, which I know is now dating me a little bit, but that's what I worked on. Then spent 5 years in Microsoft Dynamics, which is their business software.
Yeah, and then what happened after your career in tech? So walk me through kind of getting close to the end, and you were thinking next?
Yeah. So I was in my 50s. I finished with Yelp. And really my thought process was, I've got a decade more of good hard work ahead of me. Where do I spend that time? What I want to go do? And I think it was at that point that I decided it was really time, again, having spent 35 years in technology, it was time for my sort of potentially last decade of hard work to go and do something completely different.
But I have to ask, like, it sounds like you probably just retired and enjoyed life from then on, but you decided to get into something else.
I did. My wife wouldn't let me retire in my mid-50s. She was pretty keen that I kept working.
She knew better keep you out of trouble.
Exactly. Keep me out of hair. Exactly.
There you go. So you started doing research.
I did. So I spent about 6 months basically figuring out what could I do next. And I had a couple of lenses that I really looked at this thing through. One was I was really keen on the idea of ownership. One of the things that I've realized over my career is that the people that end up making the most money are those that actually own the business that they're working in. And so this notion of ownership was incredibly important to me. I had to own, and actually ideally own 100% of the business I was running. Another important aspect there was autonomy. One of the frustrations I had, and again, I was a VP in 4 or 5 different software companies, but one of the frustrations, even at a VP level, is you still never really have autonomy. You're working for a CEO directly. CEOs change. New CEO comes in. You've suddenly got to reset everything you're doing. But more importantly, not just the CEO, but you're working for a board of directors. You're working for investors. And again, those investors have their own objectives as well, which very often are make as much money as possible.
Right.
And I mean, candidly, that for me became a source of frustration. I mean, I'm a capitalist. I'm very much driven by a profit motive, but profit is and never has been my only motive for working, for doing business.
What are some of your other motives?
So I think it's really important to deliver value to the customer and put the customer first, even if that means not making as much money as possible.
That goes a long ways.
Yeah, I think it really does, Chris. And again, if you're 100% driven by someone that doesn't care that much about how you make the money, it's just the fact that you hit a certain number, that, in my mind, leads to some pretty poor incentives.
Yeah, it leads to clients not returning back to you.
It does, actually. It does. And so I've always been very customer obsessed. And again, I've always put the customer ahead of, making an extra dollar with something. I'd much rather have a very happy customer that I feel really good about delivering a great product to, a great experience to, versus someone that I've, somewhat screwed over and, haven't done the best of jobs, but I've saved myself a 10% margin.
Yeah, I can definitely relate. I think that we have to go out there and have the customer's experience in mind 100%, because I don't actually think we make our money off that first sale.
Right.
I think we make our living and our career off of the referrals and the return business from that particular client that we bent over backwards and so on to the next.
I absolutely agree with you, Chris. I think that's a great way of looking at it. I think the other aspect that I think about is I do believe a lot in karma. I believe that, you could do things out there and good things come back to you, and vice versa. You go out and screw someone over, you're going to get screwed over yourself at some point.
Yeah, you're putting that energy out there and it's going to get returned somehow.
It really is, exactly.
Yeah. Do you have an example of good karma that you've put out there that you've seen like, wow, maybe this is when I saved that spider or when I treated that person well?
So, I mean, I guess one springs to mind where we had a lady who was probably in her 80s, and she called us out because she wanted to get a really nice quality carpet in her house. Her husband had died about a year ago, and she was going to treat herself to a really nice carpet. She lived in a 1-bedroomed apartment, and she came in, and so we put in a really nice carpet for her. And my installer doing the work, unfortunately, messed up the seam. So the seam is basically where 2 pieces of carpet joined together. You just seam it there. And he messed it up, and she wasn't very happy about it. And I agreed with her 100%. So I said, we're going to fix it. So I had another guy come back and try and fix the seam. He couldn't do it. So what I basically said to her is, look, I'm not happy with this, and obviously you're not happy with it too. This is, something you were saving up for. It's a real dream you've been having, to have a beautiful carpet in your home. And so I'm going to basically replace the entire thing for free.
Okay.
And that's what I did.
And what was her reaction?
She couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
She couldn't believe that a business person in today's environment would actually voluntarily, without her forcing me to and getting a lawyer and all that, she's just asked, and I agreed with her this wasn't good. She couldn't believe that I would do it, but I did. And I didn't charge her any more money for it.
I mean, that's the way you'd want to be treated.
Yes,
It's kind of the golden rule.
it absolutely is the golden rule.
Yeah, I feel like you're somebody that lives to that.
I do. I
Yeah.
do. Again, it's karma. What goes around comes around.
Yeah. In business, it's not always going to be perfect. I've been selling real estate for the past 20 plus years, and things are going to come up. And it's not necessarily what just came up, but it's more like, how do you work through it and work together on it?
Yes. Exactly right. How do you work through it? How do you make it right, customer? Exactly.
Yeah.
And make it right in a way that you can actually go home and sleep at night and feel
Yeah.
good about it.
And have a good experience. And maybe they're going to be your friend or think more highly of you. Maybe the experience is even better because of it.
I think it comes down to one very simple thing, Chris. You just got to do the right thing. I think too many people just don't have that as a basic philosophy. You've got to do the right thing for the customer,
Yeah.
even if it costs you some money.
And I think this is common knowledge, and it is becoming forgotten in some aspects. And it's refreshing when I hear it and I see it, but it should just be a norm.
You would hope so.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were doing all this research, going back. So you decided to move on from the tech industry. You decided you wanted to be 100% owner of a business, and you probably looked through dozens of businesses.
You're exactly right. I did. I looked through dozens of businesses. I actually worked with an advisor, someone who actually helps to match people who are looking to own a franchise with potential franchise options. And he had a list of like 600 different companies. So we spent hours together kind of going through lots of different options, my interests, things I was passionate about, the sort of business model I wanted to run. There's a question of owner-operator. How much are you just the owner kind of hands-off, just looking at people doing the work and the money coming in, versus how much do you want to be hands-on, physically involved in the business every day? I'm very much of the operator model. I want to be there building things, making things, getting involved, versus just sitting in a chair somewhere looking at the money.
Yeah. Yeah. You're a very hands-on guy.
I am a hands-on guy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And your mind is definitely in it. You're not just waiting for the check to come in.
I'm 100% involved. Exactly right.
Yeah.
And so for me, the three different things that I looked at, because the three things that I really am passionate about, I'm a huge fan and advocate for restaurants. Again, I spent time 2 years at Yelp, 2+ years at Yelp, working in the restaurant business. I saw how hard it is to run a restaurant. When I was 18 years old, I actually worked for a year in a restaurant myself. So I've always had a huge passion around food, restaurants. They're a very important and essential, in fact, part of our community. So I looked at restaurants pretty hard as, should I go and own a restaurant? Came to the conclusion, no.
I could actually see you as a restaurant owner for some reason.
I could have been, Chris. I could have been. It could have been an option, but I decided no, primarily because it's just so risky. You can have the best idea in the world. It's driven by trends. Staffing issues. I mean, so many things come together, and the margins are tiny.
Yeah, it's a tight margin business.
Very tight margin business. My second passion is actually drink, specifically. I've been a home brewer since I was 18 years old.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I love beer with a passion. Thought about a brewery. The big thing there was capital investment. It requires probably $500,000 minimum to get going. And the second piece then is the competition. The number of breweries in the US has absolutely exploded over the last 20 years. There's over 10,000 breweries at last count.
I believe it. I feel like half of them are in the Pacific
And
Northwest.
half of them are. We've got some of the best brewers in the
Yeah.
world here. So
Yeah.
how am I going to compete with that as a
Yeah.
guy that's home brewer and now I'm trying to get on the national stage? So that was a no. And so the third thing I came across was flooring, which was never something that was kind of front of mind. But the more I sort of dove into it, the more I thought about it and investigated and so on. And also the more that I thought about my own experiences having gone through the flooring process with the different companies, the more I realized there was a business opportunity there.
Okay. I'm going to guess there was a problem you wanted to solve. Knowing everything I've listened to you, you're a problem solver. You like to, like in the tech industry, you like to create something, but yet then start solving the problems around it.
You're exactly right, Chris. You're exactly right. There was indeed a problem that I needed to solve. And that was quite simply the customer experience. There's two huge issues with flooring in my mind. From a customer not really knowing that much about flooring, which most customers don't. 2 years ago, I knew nothing about flooring. Two issues. One is the whole sales discovery process. How do you figure out what sort of floor is even going to work for you? Again, there's so many labels out there, so much marketing, so much confusion. Manufacturers in particular are some of the worst at this because they just put all these labels and they make stuff up. They make up names and whatever, trademarks, and a lot of confusion around what is it that I'm actually buying is one piece. The second piece, though, is actually the customer experience from once I've now made a decision on what I want to buy, I'm not just picking up a box and putting it in my home. It's got to be installed. And so the installation process, you're now getting into construction. And construction is messy. Construction can involve cutting a lot of corners. If you've ever worked had a home builder or even a flooring person in your home,
Sure.
There's cut corners because they wanted to save a buck or be done quickly or just couldn't be bothered to do a good job. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I do. Firsthand, they could cut corners by just trying to save materials and having the pattern not be as quality as it could be.
Exactly.
Or the joints. Matching up how you would want them to in a quality construction job.
Exactly right. Yeah. And the biggest thing that I have found, again, now that I know what I know, is the importance of having a really level subfloor. In other words, underneath your carpet or LVP or whatever the material is, that floor's got to be pretty flat. And for some materials, it has to be really flat. And if it's not, it's going to break.
And we're in the Pacific Northwest, so there's a lot of elements.
A lot of elements. A lot of rain, a lot of moisture changes.
Swelling,
exactly right. Yeah. So a lot of variables for that. Again, the average homeowner just has no idea about. And I was there myself 2 years ago. But if I may call out a big box store.
Yeah.
Because this is part of my journey, is that I have gone to Home Depot now 3 times.
Sure.
To buy flooring. Now, you would have thought that after the first 2 bad experiences, I wouldn't have gone back a 3rd time. But I did.
And this is where most people go.
It's, we're all going to pick up our DIY projects for the weekend. Big flooring section there. Oh, I'm just going to look at the carpet. Before you know it, there's an interest-free offer, or there's a free installation, free quote-unquote installation, or whatever it might be. Before you know it, my bedroom could do with an update on carpet, or my living room needs some new whatever. Pick your surface. 3 times I went to Home Depot. Every single time I had issues.
Like what kind of issues?
So, the start of the thing is, you're talking to someone that works in Home Depot that is in the quote-unquote flooring section, but they are not a flooring expert. They might know a little bit about the materials, but would be very surprised if they'd ever actually gone on site and done an installation in their lives. So they're not a flooring expert. And so, you're asking them sort of maybe some technical questions about the products, and they're going to tell you just to go to the website. Look at the product specs, read a document.
Yeah.
You're not talking to someone that's got a deep knowledge of the product itself.
From what I know about you, you've been going on your job sites.
I go on every one.
Okay.
Every one. I get on my hands and knees with my installers. I'm poking around. I'm understanding things. I'm seeing what the problems are. I'm seeing how we resolve them. I've got a very, very hands-on approach to my business, Chris.
And I'm also guessing you probably have taken a bit of education on your products.
A ton. For the first 3 months before I opened, I would read every spec sheet. I spent probably 100 hours on YouTube looking at all these installers, what they're doing, all the tools and everything else.
Yeah.
It was a massive learning experience.
Oh, wow. Well, and so we talked about the big box store, we talked about this experience. What are some of the other defining factors that make this a unique, wonderful experience working with Floor Coverings International?
Yeah. So we are, I believe, the 5th or 6th largest flooring company in America.
Okay.
So we have a really big presence. There are over 300 locally owned, operated franchises across the U.S. One of the things that gives us is tremendous buying power. So we work with all the large flooring companies in the U.S. And because we are the 5th or 6th largest buying group in the country, that buying power means we get great pricing. So I can go head to head with anyone out there from a pricing perspective.
Yeah, and you're going to come out to their job site.
And I'm going to come out to the job site. Exactly. You're going to see me in person.
Yeah, and you're going to give them a unique experience because they're getting the owner.
Exactly. Yes, they are. So that's kind of a big piece. The other piece is we have really amazing technology. And so our estimating software is extremely accurate. I'm able to go out to a customer, meet with the customer. We have a mobile showroom. I bring in samples to the home. I've got over 2,000 samples in my mobile showroom.
Oh,
so after talking to you, what are you looking for? Getting a sense of, do you have pets? Do you have kids? Are you concerned about moisture? All those variables all gets internalized. I come back with solutions for exactly what sort of flooring you're looking for.
I have not gotten half of those questions, and I know there's more that you have when I've been out shopping for floor in the past.
Right. People don't think to ask. They just, box stores especially, they want to sell you a box. They don't want to sell you a solution.
Well, we'll stay with that. You've been listening to the show Made of More. I'm your host, Chris Erdmann, sitting here with Anthony Cross of Floor Coverings International, and we'll be right back.
Man, I love my kids so much. I once sat for 3 hours in the cold rain to watch her soccer team lose by 18 goals.
I love my kids so much, I once used a tube to suck snot out of her stuffed nose at 3 a.m.
You win.
Love your kids? Love them enough to make sure they're in the right car seat. From toddlers to tweens, visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat to find the right seat for their age and size. Keep them safe. Visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Are you ready to discover remarkable stories of resilience and cultural connection? This is Diaspora, a show sharing the journeys of first-generation immigrants from the Indian subcontinent now building their lives in North America. Inspiring, insightful, and always engaging, Diaspora offers a unique perspective on the immigrant experience. Join me, Aditya Mehta, my guests, on the Diaspora Show every Wednesday at 2 p.m. right here on KKNW.
Alternative Talk 1150.
Welcome back to the show, Made of More. I'm your host, Chris Erdmann, sitting here with Anthony Cross of Floor Coverings International here on the east side, Bellevue, Redmond area. So welcome back, Anthony.
Thanks, Chris. Great to still be here.
Yeah. Oh, you just have so much knowledge to share, and we just have so little time. So I'm just going to dive right into it because I know that you're dying to talk about the economics of your business. Can you, in layman's term, kind of talk about the economics and revenue of your business?
Absolutely. So I think there's always, for any business, there's two key metrics. One is revenue, which is money coming in the door. The other key metric is profitability. So I've got all this revenue, but am I generating a profit at the end of the day? And so as a business owner, those are the two most important metrics that I track. More specifically, there's two, again, for a flooring business, two specific numbers that I track every week pretty much. One is called revenue per proposal, RPP, revenue per proposal. And that basically is a metric around how well am I generating leads and converting those leads into closed business. So that's one thing I track very carefully because I spend a lot of money on marketing.
How much can I ask?
I'm spending about $15,000 a month
Okay.
on marketing.
Did you expect that going into the business?
I did not.
What did you expect?
I probably, again, I was pretty naive, to be very candid. I was probably expecting just probably around 10, maybe, would have been a ceiling for me, but I'm actually close to 15 right now.
Do you see this number increasing quite a bit more, or?
I do. I think the really important thing with marketing spend is to keep it proportionate with revenue growth. And so you always want to be spending your marketing dollars wisely. And so for me, the 15,000 actually translates into about 15% of revenue right now. And that's, for my first 2 years, is a good number to kind of focus on, is about 15% of revenue on a monthly basis. I think as I become more established, as the brand builds in particular, I'd like to ramp that down to ideally 10 as a number. But that's kind of one metric. And so if my revenue is $2 million in a year, I'm spending a minimum of $200,000 on marketing. If my revenue is $5 million, it's $500,000 of marketing that I'm spending. So that percentage is an important one.
And who runs your marketing?
I do.
You're not busy, are you?
Not particularly. Yeah. Obviously, when I say I do, I mean make the investment decisions on where to market. But I have a number of people that I work with as partners who do the actual execution of it for me.
That's fantastic that you're so into it. So you're seeing where every marketing dollar goes. It's really important because I see a lot of entrepreneurs that just start dumping money into marketing and hopefully something's going to come back.
Right. Yeah. Right. You've got to look at your cost per lead. You've got to look at conversion rates. You've got to look at what zips are working, what not working. So there's a lot of different ways of slicing and dicing, Chris.
Now, did the Floor Coverings International give you a platform that they suggested for marketing, or is it something you created on your own?
So they have a pre-selected group of vendors that they work with. I started off working with all of them. I currently work with half of them.
Okay.
Some were great, some were not so great, so I got rid of the ones that weren't working for me.
Sure.
Again, the great thing about marketing is you get pretty immediate feedback on how effectively is this person spending my money. And if they're not spending it very well, I always give people a second chance, sometimes a third, but you get them more than 3 chances.
And when you say pretty immediately, do you mean within the first week, first month that you?
Definitely the first month. That's
Okay.
right. Again, initial kind of thing is how many leads am I generating? Second thing is what quality are those leads? And then the third thing is how well am I able to convert those leads to customers?
Well, getting back to the revenue, I kind of interrupted you going into the marketing. Can you keep elaborating on the economics?
Yeah, so we talked a little about revenue per proposal, which is the sales and marketing element. The other element is, which I didn't appreciate until I was in the business for a little while, is that flooring is a very cost of goods sold intensive business. Now, what do I mean by cost of goods sold? It really means two things. It means materials. And I'm not installing software in your home. I'm installing a floor. That floor, be it hardwood or carpet or whatever, is pretty expensive. It's expensive for me to buy. It's expensive for you to purchase as a consumer. But that, as a business, that cost of goods sold, that physical material, is one of my biggest expenses. The other big expense I have is my labor. And so we go through a very thorough process to vet our installers. We actually pay top dollar for our installers as well. So we only really work with the best. And it's always worth it, because one little mistake on, you cut the wrong seam and you're throwing away thousands of dollars of carpet very quickly. So you've got to have good installers as well. And so, but my installers are another pretty big chunk of total expense for my business.
Tell me about the labor. Has it been pretty easy for you to find quality labor? I've heard mixed stories of people in the construction field on being able to find great people, or even to find good people at all.
It is a challenge for sure. So we go through a pretty thorough vetting process with all of our installers. When they start work with us, we give them a job for one room, first of all. So there's not much they can screw up. If they're going to screw it up, there's not much to screw up. Most importantly, I go on every job for the full install with that installer. And so I'm talking to them, I'm seeing what tools they're using, I'm seeing how organized they are, I'm seeing, do they cut corners or not? If they try and cut a corner, I'll stop them and say, no, we're not doing it that way, you need to do it properly. So again, I've now got to a point 2 years into the business where I can actually say that to installer and say, this is not how we do things as Floor Covering International. You need to do things properly as we would have it done.
And so getting back into your costs for doing business here. So yeah, the two big expenses here.
Yep.
And what's next?
So again, the big thing we look at is we have revenue at a high level from a P&L perspective. You take revenue, you take off your cost of goods sold, which in my case really is labor and materials. And that gives you what's called a produced gross margin. That produced gross margin is a very important metric for the profitability of the business.
It is. And so how do you define success based on that?
So success, you really want to, again, at the end of the day, I have to make a profit. Otherwise, I'm not going to be in business for very long.
Sure.
And so profit really is a kind of a function of A, driving top line growth, and then B, as the top line continues to grow, making sure that enough of that produced margin is coming to the bottom line and I'm ending up the month with a profit. And so, again, I'm in the business. I'm not looking to make an enormous profit, but obviously I have to make a profit to grow the business.
Right.
So that's really the trade-off, as it were.
And you said maybe about 15% or better.
So my goal in terms of net profitability is around 15%. That's correct.
And that'd be the story of success, or great success.
Yes, it would. Exactly right, Chris. Yeah. And I also say for your listeners, year one, don't even have being profitable as a goal, I would say, in any brand new business.
So year one, were you profitable, or how much in the hole were you in the first year?
So after year one, I had a net loss on the P&L of $320,000.
Wow. That a lot of people wouldn't be able to survive that, but I'm guessing, knowing you saw that coming.
I did. I planned for it.
You did plan for it.
Exactly right. No, I did. Again, you never hope to make that big of a loss year one, but you have the cash in place such that you can actually get through it and cover it. I made a lot of pretty big investments in the business out of the gate. I spent $25,000 on a forklift truck,
Yeah,
which I use every day. And so it's an essential part of the business. But, it's one of the big costs you have. I've got a 2,000 square foot warehouse in Redmond. And Redmond's not a cheap place to have a warehouse.
no, it is not.
But it's a great place because that's where all my customers are.
Well, there you go. I want to switch a bit here. Materials are changing, and I've seen LVP around for quite some time now. I've seen hardwood floors and laminate. What's happening in the material world for flooring, and what's coming?
It's a really good question. Flooring never slows down in terms of the amount of innovation. It's one of the biggest surprises that I've had, excuse me, as I've spent 2 years now in the flooring business, is just how much really material science is involved in flooring. I mean, two big things that I've seen is one, a significant improvement in the ability of materials, especially carpet, to resist things like stains. And so we now have carpets that are bleach proof, believe it or not.
Really?
And I had a customer just literally last week said, this is a bleach proof carpet. He said, I don't believe you. I said, do you have any bleach? He said, yeah, I do. I've got some in my kitchen. Brought out one of those Clorox gallon things of bleach. Yeah. I said, put it on the carpet. He poured it like probably about 4 or 5 ounces in the middle of my carpet. We stood back, looked at it, nothing.
I have a more important question than that. That's fascinating. But more, is it wine proof?
Yes, it is, Chris.
It
yes,
is?
It is.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't deliberately pour wine all over a carpet, especially a good wine, but yeah, you can do that and it won't change color.
Okay. So you're seeing a lot of change. Obviously, bleach, you're seeing a lot of changes in the flooring
A lot
world.
of change, exactly. And so you mentioned luxury vinyl plank, LVP. That's definitely, it's been around now 15 years or more. Still pretty common. One of the flooring materials that is making a huge comeback right now is laminate.
Tell me why.
So laminate's got a reputation. Pergo, 20 years ago, you know, visuals back then were okay, but today they look very, very dated. Most importantly, Pergo was horrible with water. It swelled up and, you know, exploded.
Yeah.
So three reasons I love laminate. One, it is the most scratch-proof material out there. Really scratch resistant.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it is. Second, laminate has, I think, some of the best visuals. It looks like wood, and it's more realistic than LVP or any other material apart from real wood. Great visuals. Third thing is laminate now is actually, you can argue waterproof, water resistant. Basically, you can spill some water on a laminate floor and it will not sink in for 3 days. You have 3 days top-down moisture protection on a laminate floor.
Wow, that sounds great.
Yeah.
I would have never guessed. You know, when I was looking at LVP versus laminate, I was thinking water damage.
Everyone does.
Yeah.
Yes, everyone does. And LVP is great. LVP is plastic. So plastic, water, you never have a problem. But laminate has so much better visuals. It's thicker. It's much better scratch resistance. I always at least recommend or suggest laminate as an option because people don't even think about it.
Really? Yeah. Well, yeah, I wasn't even thinking about it. So
there we go.
I'd like to ask you, what does the Made of More mean to you?
It's a really good question. You know, one visual that springs to mind when I hear about Made of More is an iceberg. You know, an iceberg, you've got that top 10% above the water and then 90% under the water. Every time I meet with someone, I literally see an iceberg. You know, there's the visual of who I'm looking at, you know, the person that you can actually physically see. But then straight away I start thinking, this is an iceberg. You know, there is 90% of you that I'm not processing, not thinking about, have no understanding of. But that 90% is so much more important than the 10%.
The unseen.
The unseen.
The hard work.
The hard work, the life experiences, the trials and tribulations you overcome, the challenges you've had. I mean, so many things, Chris.
Yeah, every lesson, every new piece of awareness.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of often my starting point is there is so much more to an individual than you can see on the surface.
It's like you can't judge a book by its cover.
No, you really can't. Exactly right. And that for me is, I kind of take that to life because every customer I meet with is that kind of same thing of, yes, I'm here to talk about your flooring needs and everything else, but never judge a book by its cover. I've been surprised a number of times when I've gone into a home and I'm thinking, you know, this person's probably going to be asking for a pretty basic carpet, let's say. Turn around and say, I want a beautiful hardwood floor. I went into a mobile home in Redmond. There's a place called the Friendly Village. And the owner there was like, Anthony, I've been saving up now for 5 years. Yes, I might live in a mobile home, but I want to spend $20,000 on a new floor.
Yeah. And you got to give them that service.
And I'm going to give them the service. Absolutely right.
I love that because I do know, like, as soon as somebody's going to give you a call, and I could just imagine whether they're in that mobile home or they're in that mansion, that you're gonna deliver and you're gonna give that top notch quality service. And I watched you talk with very many people, and you seem to treat everybody the same, and that's with a great level of respect and attention.
Thank you, Chris. That's part of my philosophy. Is we're all people. We all have a lot of life experiences, and there's so much more to know about people than what you see on first glance.
Yeah, that's a good lesson for any of us to really ponder about, especially when we're doubting somebody.
Yes, Very much so.
Yeah. What's one lesson you'd like to pass down to first-time business owners?
First-time business owners, I think the thing that I would say the most is the importance of having cash. May seem a strange thing to say, but cash flow in a business is incredibly important. I mean, this year we're probably going to do north of $1 million of revenue. Now, that's a number. What does that actually mean in practice? In practice, that means I have $1 million of money coming into my business, and probably, if I'm doing okay, $900,000 of checks that I'm writing going out of the business. That's a lot of money for an individual to be managing in and out. And so the reason I say about cash is because it becomes a real timing thing as well. If some of my revenue gets delayed and I've still got those bills to pay, that $900,000 going out, you can get into a pretty sticky situation pretty quickly.
I've seen that a lot in the construction business, especially.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet.
You see these developers go in and build something, and then they're hiring subcontractors like such as yourself.
Yes.
And you usually have these 30, 60, 90-day payouts.
Exactly.
And they may not pay out in 30 days. They may not pay out in 90 days.
Right.
Yeah. So I've seen a few contractors get sunk on the sidelines.
Yes. And it's certainly, again, as someone that's worked in corporations pretty much my entire life, coming into this now, running a business which has pretty high cash, and again, I'm talking actual cash in the bank requirements, I've really come to appreciate the importance of, A, having the cash there to pay bills, doing cash flow forecasting is another piece. And the third piece is then just having lines of credit. You may not use them, you may not ever need them, but have it in place, because there will be a time when suddenly you need 50 grand. And that's a lot of cash to suddenly have to draw.
Yeah.
If the line of credit's there, not a problem. You can pay your bills and you can move on, and then eventually the revenue will come in.
That's really wise.
But you've got to have it as a backup.
I'd say that's a valuable piece of information that you're giving to first-time business owners. You know, I just want to say, Anthony does residential and commercial floorings. And Anthony, as we're ending the show here, what is the best way that you want people to get a hold of you?
Thank you, Chris. So I would love people to connect with me either through our website, floorcoveringsinternational.com. We are a locally owned and operated franchise here in Redmond. And so Redmond is our central location, but we serve a lot of the east side. You can also reach us via Facebook. We're on Facebook.
Give them a like.
Give me a like. Love a like as well. Absolutely. Google, obviously. We're on Google. You can read our reviews on Google. And office number is 425-441-3805. So please give us a call. You'll be talking to me.
Well, Anthony, thank you for that. I just want to say thank you for taking your time out of your busy day to come on the show. I just think it was a real honor because we've learned a lot here with you today, different aspects that we haven't even dove into with anybody else yet. And so thank you.
Chris, it's my pleasure.
All right. Well, you've been listening to the show Made of More. I'm your host, Chris Erdmann. And again, today we were listening to Anthony Cross, the philosopher, the business owner, entrepreneur of Floor Coverings International.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Made of More on KKNW. Whether you're on the road, at the office, or listening from home, keep chasing what lights you up, keep building what matters, and never settle for less than the life you were made for. You are made of more. More purpose, more impact, more joy. Made of More is part of the Speaking Current network of shows and podcasts, all of which that are dedicated to inspiring listeners to build lives of meaning, connection, and value. You can find the Speaking Current network of shows, including Made of More, wherever you get your podcast. You can also find us on YouTube. Until next Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW, I'm Chris Erdmann. Stay bold, stay inspired, and stay made of more.